I rented the hotel laundry basement till dawn. What the steam iron pressed out of us. I didn't rent the hotel laundry because I like the smell of bleach. I rented it because steam irons don't lie, and I was done pretending wrinkle-free counts as clean. If you've ever helped a night engineer convince a sulking boiler to behave at 2 a.m. with nothing but gasket sealer and patience, he remembers. I had. So when I texted Lewis just before midnight, he called back with the weary affection of a man who measures life in maintenance tickets and cigarettes not smoked. "You can have the laundry until 4, he said. "I'll loop the camera for that corridor. Keep the presses on low, stay away from the bleach injector. And no trials after 2. He laughed like someone who had learned that policy on the hot side of a rumor. At 11:39 p.m., my phone delivered the sentence our marriage can type blindfolded. Loadout ran late, quick debrief became a drink, might crash at the office. Don't wait up. Ava isn't a liar. She arranges storms into corridors. She can stack donors into patients and volunteers into choreography. We have been excellent at mercy and conservative with appetite for a year, which is to say we've been good citizens starving on a full pantry. The person who made that dangerous is predictable. The operations lead with gaffer in his tote and shoulders that convince freight to forgive physics. His name is Eli. He stands exactly one respectful step from married women, which is a virtue in daylight and a rumor in the bones after midnight. The laundry lived in concrete under the ballroom's lies. It breathed with the slow lungs of dryers big enough to reheat a city. Presses gleamed like altars you have to plug in. Carts lined up in rows as obedient as vows. I set 2 paper cups of coffee on a folding table that had seen better banquets and waited among rolling racks that smelled like every morning you've ever misremembered as easy. They came down the service elevator at 12:07. Ava first, hair pinned in the shape competence requires, heels hooked on 2 fingers as if she'd remembered to be merciful to herself. Eli one respectful step behind, sleeves shoved, tote at his hip, eyes doing the perimeter math men who lift after midnight learn by necessity and keep by habit. He saw me first, men like him always do, and stopped at the threshold with his hands visible and his mouth closed. "You rented the laundry," Ava said and smiled with one side of her mouth. "Of course you did." "I wanted a room where heat admits it," I said. "Say it where steam can hear us." Eli looked at the main steam valve like a person memorizing a prayer in a language he won't claim. "Need me?" he asked her, not me. "I need you exactly there," she said, pointing to the taped line that keeps feet from flirting with carts. "If I want less distance, I'll use your name." He obeyed. Good men do. It keeps them employed and difficult to resent correctly. I pressed the foot pedal on the small iron, the hiss like confession. The metal mouth opened and waited. "Say it," I told her. "In an elevator," she said, because fate syndicates its worst scripts. 2 weeks ago, between floors and nouns, I kissed him. Quick mint rehearsal. He stepped back. He said my name like a lock. I hated him for being exactly the adult the city keeps hearing. I hated me for needing it. "Do you want me to hit him?" I asked, hearing the stupidity leave my mouth like steam. "I want you to choose me," she said. "Not rescue, appetite." I set a hotel sheet on the press and pulled the handle down. The platens came together with the gentle cruelty of competence. Wrinkles surrendered with a sigh. I lifted the plate and watched heat finish what hands started. "Invite me when you're interesting," I said. "Not only when danger asks for a vote." "I am inviting you," she said, and stepped into me with the kind of accuracy that makes a man remember he's not a manual but a body. I put my hand at the back of her neck and pressed my thumb into the notch I keep for emergencies that should be pleasures. Her eyes closed like a vote that had been read aloud. I kissed her. Jurisdiction. not apology. She answered like a woman who had been a plan all day and needed 4 minutes where urgency wasn't a thief. My other hand slid along her ribs to her waist where elastic reminds you the world exists. I stopped, because I like who I am at breakfast and depositions ruin coffee. She took my lower lip between her teeth, brief and decisive, then laughed into my cheek, the laugh that carried me through February's invoices. "Do you still want to hit him?" she whispered. "I want to thank him for stepping back," I said, "and I want to owe him nothing else." "That I can live on," she said, and the small cruelty of relief made us both kinder. We stood between carts while the dryers turned air into decisions. She told me the truth I didn't earn and she didn't owe. The kiss had been curiosity dressed as courage. The stopping was the only part she could keep when the light was honest. Tonight's almost felt like a door practicing her name. I told her about the motel parking lot and the brass key I didn't ask for, how laughter did more than shame ever has, how I am tired of being good and ready to be generous. Eli cleared his throat in the polite key. "Loadin' at 9, he said to the industrial fan. "We need 4 backs and 0 speeches." "Coffee on me," I said, which meant 3 different kinds of thank you and an admission of restraint. He nodded once and remained a respectful step of hallway. Men like him don't audition for absolution. They avoid the casting call. I pulled a grease pencil from my pocket and wrote in small letters at the bottom edge of the steel table where a rag wouldn't find it, "Choose before currents." She took the pencil, turned her wrist to the blue work light and wrote along the inside of her palm, "Appetite, not theater." I kissed the ink dry while the press hissed its applause. "We're ridiculous," she said, forehead to mine, "but not wrong." The spinner hit cycle and sang our timing. I laid a pillowcase on the press. We counted together the way people count when they want to be responsible and alive at the same time. 1, 2, 3, and lifted. The cloth came away somehow more honest. "Do something foolish," she said, "but survivable." I opened a clean linen bag and with the solemnity of a witness fed it a stack of pressed sheets. I wrote on the bag with the grease pencil, "For mornings." She grinned and kissed me stupid. "You are the correct flavor of absurd," she said. We kept our clothes. We kept our life. We made heat that could ride the elevator up without borrowing forgiveness. Somewhere a boiler muttered about its workload. Somewhere a drunk laughed in the hallway, the world continuing its obligations with minimal interest in ours. "Tell me the worst thing you almost did," she said. "I almost turned the kitchen into a courtroom," I said. "Exhibits, citations, a clever plaintiff and no defendant anyone would bother loving. I deleted the drafts. I came here." "I almost promoted a maybe to a myth," she said. "I almost let an elevator make theology out of timing. I asked for a basement instead." We leaned against a cart and let our bodies understand that not all changes have to be large to be faithful. I pressed my mouth to the place below her ear where sentences dress before they walk into a room. She made the small sound that has walked me through audits. I stopped again at the elastic because any room that smells like bleach deserves you at your best. At 1:42 the steam line coughed and the gauges settled into a purr. Lewis texted, 20 minutes. I turned the presses to low and we stood in the radiant quiet. "Invite me to your daylight," she said. "Teach your hands to be brave under fluorescent light." "Yes," I said. "Invite me to your appetite when the spreadsheet thinks it gets a vote." We laughed at the obscene practicality of it and meant it like a grant application. We wanted to win without lying. By 2, we had a bag tagged for mornings and a list we could carry. I wiped our fingerprints from the table and left one thumbprint near choose before currents, because rebellion should be a whisper in a town that has to keep sleeping. We rode up in the service elevator with our coffee cups and our decision not to be dramatic about correct choices. At 9, the community center smelled like lemon spelling competence. Eli was already stacking tables with that modest inevitability that convinces gravity to mind its manners. I carried the other end and let the sun own my neck. Ava moved through the room with a clipboard, and the mouth volunteers obey without punishing themselves. When she passed me, she tapped the ink on her palm with 2 fingers, and the morning selected us without speeches. On break, I set a coffee by Eli's elbow. "Thank you," I said, "for being the adult in the elevator." "Thank you," he said, "for booking a room where heat admits it." He looked at the doorway like a man who treats exits with professional affection. We nodded once, the treaty men sign without pen or audience. We loaded the van without theater. Tape squealed and forgave itself. A list folded into a pocket and decided not to be revised. Gravity consented for one more day. We didn't tell anyone about the basement. We didn't need to. We tied a spare linen tag, 4 mornings, to the side of our fridge under the magnet shaped like the ridiculous boat we bought one summer we didn't ruin. Sometimes when the apartment auditions for courtroom, we boil water for tea and let the kettle teach the room how to listen. Sometimes she texts come and means stand beside me while I bend a room into competence and beauty. Sometimes I text come and mean watch me be a body before I become a plan. Sometimes we invite a friend who mistakes proof for love and show them how steam irons refuse to flatter and presses make nothing disappear. They simply ask cloth to remember its intended shape. We didn't stop admiring other people's competence. We did stop confusing it with permission. Heat is a temperature, not a verdict. Steam is a witness that insists on contact. We eat before we try to win. We sleep when the clock loses its manners. We put our hands on each other in daylight like the sun still issues licenses. And when the gossiping part of the city asks whether we have anything to add, we say we rented a room where heat tells the truth, kissed under pipes that don't accept metaphors, wrote small words where a rag won't find them, Jews before currents, appetite not theater, and left before 2 because that's the law now. Return the key. Thank the boiler. Bring the mornings home pressed but honest, no starch, wrinkled where they need to be for breathing.